Hello and welcome to Felix's Space Time. In today's video we have an interview with Austin Hirsh, an Inspiration 4 contestant and founder of the 2050 Co. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. So you applied for an Inspiration 4 seat. Can you tell people a bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Austin Hirsh. I am the founder of the 2050 company. And I'm 23 years old, live in Gig Harbor, Washington. So my company makes food for the future. So starting with the 2050 smoothie, which I have one of them right here. So essentially what we do is we work to combat food waste. Nearly 50% of all fruits and vegetables grown in the US each year end up wasted. And a lot of this is just kind of, it doesn't need to happen. So what we do is we take that unwanted produce, whether it's imperfect looking or surplus, but still perfectly good. We use the same technology they use to make food for astronauts, that freeze drying technology. And that really, the reason they use it for space is because it extends the shelf life from days to years. And it's the same thing down here. So we can get that berry that's about to go bad in a couple of days, freeze dry it, and now it's good for 2 years. So that cuts out some of that waste due to perishability. The next issue there is that so-called like imperfect or ugly produce. We've all kind of seen that, like that little wonky strawberry that maybe tastes as good as a beautiful strawberry, but looks a little weird. So as you can see here, that little window, like once it's ground down to a powder, there's really no such thing as that imperfect produce. It all looks the same. And the great thing about this is it also doesn't need any preservatives or sweeteners. So all this has is one half peach, 8 strawberries, an apple, and half a banana in there. And that's it. And then I actually made one for breakfast right before this call. So I just blended this with a cup of ice and a cup of water, and it gives this smoothie. So this is 12-ounce smoothie, has all of that fruit, and it tastes the same as a traditional smoothie. So that's kind of the lowdown of my product. And I was really excited seeing this opportunity because the inspiration for this product was this technology that they've used for space flight since the first manned missions into space. And there's such a um, there's such a long history of taking those products that were made exclusively for astronauts, like wireless headphones or memory foam or computer mice, and then eventually applying it down here. And now we can't imagine living without like our AirPods and computer mice. So this just seemed like a pretty intuitive next step. Plus, it's really the perfect technology to apply down here to fix some of those issues that we're facing on Earth and really ensure prosperity by the year 2050.
Cool. Tell us a bit about your journey towards making your company. What led you to set it up?
Absolutely. So I've always been really inventive since I was a kid. Like I remember when I was a little kid, I would spend like months, like 8 months leading up to St. Patrick's Day, making these extravagant leprechaun traps. And it was like this whole Rube Goldberg thing across the whole living room. And I think it was great that my parents would let me do that because it kind of let me play with that creative side of my brain. That kind of interest evolved. I was always following the newest developments in space technology. My parents were both commercial airline pilots. My grandpa flew for Pan Am as well. And that was kind of like the like one step closer to space travel is air travel, right? Like that was the thing that was like the new uh, frontier in like our grandparents' generation. And now we're the generation with that for space. So I went into my undergrad at the University of San Diego and I decided to work on mechanical engineering. Knew I was interested in inventing something that would help kind of solve some of those issues caused by climate change and help make the world a better place. I actually was working on something completely different, which was a robotic lawnmower. I thought of it as the Tesla of lawnmowers. And that's just because my summer job was always mowing the lawn and I hated it. And just like walking back and forth, I was like, this can so easily be done with a robot. So I spent 2 years working on that in college. And then just kind of by chance, I kind of realized I need to go back to the data and see, we're facing this crisis by the year 2050, and is the best thing I could be applying myself to towards this lawnmower, or is there some other solution that I'm better fit for? So that's when I went into the data and I found this great resource called Project Drawdown. They're the world's leading resource in climate change solutions. And they actually say that the number one best way to reduce global warming of 2 degrees Celsius by 2050 is reducing food waste, which was super surprising to me as a very technically minded person. So I was like, well, that's definitely something I can do right out of college. I had this idea for this instant smoothie in my mind just because I make a smoothie every day. And it was another thing where I was like, I hate doing this. It should be better. So that side of it, the convenience and the impact kind of meshed in my brain. And then I entered it into the Fowler Global Social Innovation Competition down at USD, like the very end of my senior year. I actually won first place there, went on to the global rounds, wrapped up that competition 2 days before I started my master's in June 2019. Finished up that competition, flew up to UW in Seattle, kept working on this project by myself for the whole year I was doing this master's program, entered like 5 other pitch competitions during that year, kind of spring 2020, and was really accelerated by the whole COVID crisis. The first 2 weeks of that, I was like, well, I guess I can just kind of wait this out and work on it after it all resolves itself. But that didn't happen. um, I think everyone was surprised by how long that dragged on. And then I was like, well, this is really the perfect product for people who are staying home, buying non-perishables, buying food online. And so I just decided to go all in on that while I was staying at my parents' house. Put together a Kickstarter and blew past that fundraising goal in the first 3 days, ended up raising $40,000, which was a huge surprise. And like, that was just like a really great sign that people were into this and saw the value of it. And yeah, I mean, it's a long story, but just kind of been working on it by myself ever since then as a solo founder, bootstrapping it. And then now I'm finally bringing in a co-founder. So I'm really excited about that.
Wow. What advice would you give to young people trying to start their own company?
I would say find that thing that you're really passionate about and that you're uniquely good at, and just kind of dive into it. I got a lot of advice during my last couple of years of college that was like, oh, that's great that you want to start a business, but maybe go out into the world and get a normal desk job for a while, like get to know the business world. And then maybe when you're 30, go off and venture off and start your business, which I think is really good advice and can work really well for people. But my mindset was, the whole reason I'm starting this business is because climate change is such a pressing issue. I mean, I named the business after a date, 2050, because that's the date that, I mean, they project we could sail a boat through the North Pole and not hit ice. Like, that's pretty shocking. And so for that scenario, like, it didn't make sense to just go get some mediocre desk job and wait out 10 years until I have that mythical experience. So I just jumped right in. And I mean, it's hard. I've hit a lot of challenges and pitfalls, but that's how you learn, is just working on it. I mean, when COVID hit, I got a website together, and this first product, I actually sell it in this 10-pack bag. I mean, this bag came from Target. This was printed off on my printer at home. And I still to this day filled all of these bags by myself, and with my parents helping. So, like, sometimes you just got to dive into it, try it out, see if people want it, test out your idea. And you got to be able to recognize if you need to move on to a different idea, or if you really need to kind of go even further into that idea you're working on and just make it happen. But I'd say just go for it. There's not much to lose, and now is the time to really follow those passions.
It's a good piece of advice. A big emphasis on your company is sustainability. Can you tell me which way how how is your company sustainable?
Yeah, absolutely. I have this philosophy that the best sustainable businesses or products are by nature built around the concept of sustainability, so that you're not really putting that decision on the customers. Just by buying something that's good for them, they're also making a sustainable impact. So two of my favorite examples are like Impossible Foods or Beyond Meat, kind of that new plant-based meat approach. They're really interesting because they're not trying to make a veggie burger. They're trying to make that like greasy, delicious hamburger you love. And you buy it because it will eventually be cheaper than a hamburger and just taste better. And oh, by the way, it's sustainable. Just by eating this burger you love, it's sustainable. The other example is a Tesla. A lot of people buy Teslas because they're sustainable. A lot of people buy them just because it's like a really cool car. And they get it to get this awesome car. And by the way, it's also sustainable. And I think that's such a beautiful way to kind of harness a business to make an impact, is to not put the responsibility on the customer, but just make something that they'll buy anyways to make their life easier. And in doing that, it'll be sustainable. So with the 2050 smoothie, I mean, I made this like in the 60, I made this smoothie like right before this call, like 60 seconds before this call. I just popped a scoop of powder in, poured a cup of ice in, cup of water, blended it up, and it's ready. I used to make smoothies out of frozen fruit, and it takes way longer. It takes up half of my freezer. That fruit goes bad and I have to go buy more at the grocery store. This, you just leave it in your cupboard for up to 2 years. Use it whenever you want. You always have ice and water ready. So it's just, even if it wasn't sustainable, it would be a better product because it just makes your life easier and it's healthy. But because I had that idea of sustainability from the start, I just built it into the very product. So really it's all focused on reducing food waste, because that is one problem I think we can really address. And there's three different places where there are food waste. There's on the farm, where it's like not even picked, or it's taken out because it's ugly. There's in that kind of distribution place where, again, it's eliminated if it's ugly or if it goes bad. And then there's in the home. So the easiest place to start is in the home. You don't have those fruits going bad in that bowl on your counter because this just sits in your cupboard for up to 2 years. So check off that 40 or so percent of wasted food in the home with this product. And then it kind of works its way up to the distributor in the farm by eliminating those cosmetic differences, no more imperfect produce, taking out some more perishability, and then also creating demand for fruit while it's not in season, so that we can just buy it up when there's tons of strawberries in June and then save it for when there's no strawberries in January.
Wow. Um, a lot of people say that we should be sorting out problems on Earth, um, like climate change, before we go into space. What do you think about that?
I definitely think there's something to that. And that's why I think it's so important that the inspiration for flight, it's not just sending 4 people up into space and like, oh, look, we're going into space. It's it's all, again, it's all built around this impact of the partnership with St. Jude. So, I mean, Jared donated $100 million to St. Jude. We're working on raising another $100 million. That's amazing. I mean, one of the astronauts who's been announced, Haley, she is a cancer survivor herself and she works at St. Jude. Like, this whole mission is intimately tied to solving this huge problem we've faced on Earth forever, which is childhood cancer. And I think this is another really good example of how commercial spaceflight is something that people will want to do anyways, but it's by intimately tying this mission to this solution that we can solve. it adds that impact that's inherently built into it. So I think that's really great. That's what makes me really excited about Inspiration 4. And I think it really, there's kind of it's kind of beautiful to also think of how there's that hope seat that's filled by Haley, and then there's that prosperity seat that is still open and that I'm hoping to fill. And I think it would be a really cool symmetry kind of for this space flight to be focusing on these two huge issues that are still down on Earth. There's cancer, childhood cancer, and then the other big issue that really comes to a lot of people's minds as one of the biggest issues we're facing as citizens of Earth is climate change. And I think that was why I was so excited when I saw this opportunity, and being able to present this product is this is a solution made with tech from space that helps the Earth. And also, I mean, looking forward, my vision is to get these smoothies into every household in the Earth in the future. And that becomes a more sustainable way for us to eat our fruits and vegetables and get the same nutrients. But also, if you look at the missions for SpaceX, they want to get 1 million people living on Mars by 2050. And those people are going to need to be fed probably by freeze-dried foods that can travel that distance to Mars. So there's going to be a need to be a lot of new space technology and food tech to support those future missions. And I think this is a technology that can both support the future of space travel while also supporting that life that is left behind here on Earth, so that we can, if we choose, go populate a new planet, but we'll also have the choice to stay here on Earth and not only survive, but prosper here on Earth. So I think it has such a cool aspect of these 4 seats to be filled. And I just think there's would be a really interesting symmetry with 1 seat representing hope and battling that massive problem of childhood cancer, and then another seat representing prosperity and focusing on combating that problem that we're facing here on Earth collectively as a planet.
Okay. Is there anything about going to space that worries you at all?
I've been thinking of that as it's become closer to a reality. I think as I get closer to it, I actually am getting less nervous. I mean, there's always that little voice in your head that's nervous about leaving. I mean, it's the same as leaving your hometown or your country for the first time. It's just somewhere new. Like, I've been on this planet my entire life. Of course, it makes you a little nervous to leave, but I'm not really that nervous. I think the technology that SpaceX has been developing over the past decade or more is so reliable and safe. And I've been following it super closely, like watching the development of each of these rockets, getting to the point where they can actually send up humans. And I think it's just a natural progression to get to that point where we can send up civilians into space. And I really trust a lot in that technology and everything SpaceX has developed, as well as the extensive training that I would go through if I was selected to really run through all of those different scenarios for if something did go not as planned in space, how you deal with that.
Cool. Have you at all tried to prepare yourself physically or mentally for the changes that you could face if chosen to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point it's a lot of I think we'll get into that physical training. I mean, obviously I want to stay in shape so that I'm ready to be on that rocket, but right now it's a lot of grappling with that mental problem, or not even problem, but just kind of that idea of that I could be in space in fall. Again, it's not quite nervousness, it's just a little bit of coming to terms with this thing that I didn't necessarily think would ever happen. And now it's becoming closer to a reality. I mean, the competition ends tomorrow and then they choose who goes up. So I think it's just a lot of kind of grappling with that reality. I think if I was chosen, there would be kind of a period of disbelief before acceptance in a good way, just like, oh my God, I'm actually going to space, about to live out this dream. So I do think in the months leading up to that, it'll be a good balance, just as much mental preparation and physical preparation. And I think there's also a lot of focus on that in the training, making sure you're good in a confined space, because you're going to be up there for a few days, which is really exciting to me. Like just being able to watch the earth for 3 days straight is so cool to me. But yeah, I think that's a good way to be thinking about it. It's not all, there's that good balance in making sure you're both physically and mentally prepared to leave the earth for the first time.
Cool. Have you got any other dreams for the future at all with your company and with space?
Yeah, I mean, I named my company the 2050 company, and that is really completely future focused. Our slogan is food for the future. Uh, so my dreams are pretty focused out, like far in the future, like a few decades, which really isn't that far when you think of it. Um, some of those projections for what Earth could look like make me a little nervous when I do research. And it's just the type of thing that really inspires me, though, because we're the generation facing this unprecedented problem and it's in our hands to deal with it. So, my dream for the year 2050 would be that the world is at least as good as it is now, that I can do all of those things I love. I can go snorkel in vibrant reefs and go skiing and spend the summers outside without smoke covering up the sun, which was something I experienced this summer. And not only that, but get to a point that's better than that. And the great thing about humans is that we've always faced all of these problems and found solutions through our own creativeness and inventiveness, making these new solutions. And so while there are some worries about the future, I'm really optimistic about what we can do when we come together and kind of put our creative minds together. And that's kind of what spaceflight has always embodied, is these things that seemed impossible, just seeing it happen through your own eyes when people come together. And that's why the moon landing was so inspiring, is that no one thought we would ever land on the moon. And then suddenly you see someone stepping onto the moon. And the greatest value there is just inspiring people to work at those things that seem impossible. So my biggest dream for the future is to just kind of reverse the course that we're headed on right now and come together, use this ingenuity of our generation and make an impact. And I also think that's why that would probably be the greatest opportunity if I was selected for the seat, is to inspire other people my age or younger to just take that idea and run with it and try to help make the world a better place. Because I think it's obvious once you're on space that we're all on this planet together, and this is a collective problem we're all facing.
Well, thank you, Austin, for all the great answers to my questions. That's all the questions I've got for you today. I wish you
Yeah,
luck
thank you.
on trying to get a seat on Inspiration 4.
Thank you. I have a question for you. I'm trying to think of fun things to fill time if I get selected in 3 days in space. What would you do if you had 3 days in space and zero gravity? Do you have any ideas?
Definitely take some pictures.
Yeah.
And if you had the chance, take a board game up there, or play some cards, and in the gravity, that would be quite cool.
I think it would be super fun just to kind of play around in zero gravity. That would be awesome. Maybe I also want to fly over my house. That would be cool to see your house from space.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for the chat, and thank you for answering all my questions.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Hope you enjoyed that. Don't forget to like and subscribe because we have an exciting competition coming up soon. Bye.